What is good, my beautiful babies? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Can I get an amen? Upstate, hope you had a fantastic weekend. In 5 minutes, a unique Mother's Day experience for me. Why the NFL is operating in a way that's going to increase the divorce rate in this country. That is coming up on the show today. Also, the sad tale of South Carolina's own Morant, most and least attractive states. I will explain. We've got predictions coming your way. Clemson and South Carolina athletics the next 3 seasons. We've got Chris Phillips joining us. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got onsides and offsides. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Folks, I'll tell you what. I saw a graph today that said sports radio listeners download the apps for their sports station more than any other radio listener. So more than news talk, more than rock music, more than any other platform. If you have not downloaded the Odyssey app, what are you waiting for, my friends? AUDACY. Subscribe to the Fan Upstate. That's right. Subscribe to the Fan Upstate right there on the Odyssey app. And the beautiful thing is, and look, we did a live show at Clemson last week. Wherever you are, you get crystal clear reception on the Odyssey app, wherever you are. Look, I listen to sports radio in my car. I listen on the radio dial, right? But if I'm ever in a spot where the station fades away, you plug in the Odyssey app, you're good to go. You're golden. AUDACY. You can download it right there. Hope everyone had an outstanding weekend. So, I want to open today with this. Brad Crawford does a real good job coming up with interesting, compelling content in a down period of time. And he's got this article out right now, and it's the 10 most dangerous teams to watch in 2023. But really what the article is about 10 teams that have not made the college football playoff that could. And we are 1 year away from expanding this thing. This college football is about to become truly fascinating because the ACC is now doing away with divisions. So does that help or hurt Clemson? It helps Clemson because what you could have, all the good teams are in the Atlantic Division. You lose one game to Florida State. Florida State only loses one game. Guess who's not playing in the ACC championship game anymore? You, Clemson, if you're in the same division. If you don't have divisions, so long as that you are the second best team, you get to still go to the ACC championship game. So doing away with divisions helps Clemson out big time. Also, we're a year away from going to 12 teams where, there's going to be a lot of programs like Clemson, like Florida, where the verdict for the seasons, I think probably, Diesel, a problem in our society is we're way too black and white. We've lost nuance. We've lost the shades of gray. But the change is going to create very black and white thinking.
There are 50 of those shades. By the way.
Right. That's right. That's right. And if you've seen the movie, you probably had a good time. I will say this, as a Florida fan, I know, Diesel, that it's going to be every year is just going to be either it was a playoff year or a non-playoff year. And either the year was good and you made the playoff or it was crappy, rubbish. Nobody's even going to watch the bowl game anymore. And this is why I see the positives and the negatives of expanding to 12 teams. But if I were to open today by asking you guys, what is the most surprising brand, in your opinion, that has not made the college football playoff, who would you say it is? We've had 9 playoff seasons. 9 times. By the way, a friend of my wife's is a police officer. He's told my wife, 9 you're fine, 10 you're mine. Have you guys found that to be true in terms of being over the speed limit? He says 9 you're fine, 10 you're mine.
Well, how come then when I get pulled over doing 5 over, yet somehow there's a Corvette doing 30 over and that dude never gets pulled over?
Because the Corvette is driven by a cute woman. The Jeep is driven by you, Diesel.
Plus, if you can afford to buy a Corvette, you can afford to pay the tickets.
Yeah, yeah,
you know, like that old adage about how do you afford to put gas in your giant Hummer? Well, if I can afford a Hummer, I can afford the gas.
If you don't think that women get the benefit of the doubt behind the wheel more than you do, then I've got news to tell. I got news for you. And let me tell you this, Diesel. Okay, I am not here. Our show is called Offsides. I'm not here to be politically correct. 9 out of 10 times that I see something crazy going on in front of me, and you pass that person, 9 out of 10 times there's a woman driving that car.
Okay, you're going there.
Well, Diesel, I'm just sharing my observation. I'm sharing what I've observed.
Where I want to go is I want to ask the Offsiders early on in the show, 71307, start your text with keyword fan. Between Mark and I, which one of us is more likely to attempt to cry to get out of a ticket?
Diesel, what do you define as crying?
Crying. Okay. You know what crying? There's no definition of crying. Crying is crying.
My attempts to get out of tickets in the past have not gone well, Diesel. I was pulled over in Houston, Texas, going 29 and a 20. And when the cop pulled me over and I said, am I really the guy you're after? The guy going 29?
It's not a smart plan.
I showed him my teacher's badge and I said, I'm a teacher. He goes, exactly. You should know better. so it hasn't gone well for me, dude.
I got pulled over for going about 2 over the speed limit, creeping past a cop on a 4-lane road. Oh. He was going exactly the speed limit. So let's say it was 35. Oh. He was going 35 and nobody would pass this guy. And we were behind him for miles. So I was like, all right, I'll be your Huckleberry. And I just barely eased past the guy. And as soon as my left rear tire got past the hood of his car, whoop, whoop, pulled me over. And he goes, so he gave me this stern talking to. I was like, I knew I wasn't going to get a ticket. He's not going to write me a ticket for doing 37 and a 35. It's going to get thrown out. He's wasting his own damn time writing this ticket. So I knew I wasn't going to get one. But he gives me this like stern talking to. He's like, son, there's a speed limit here for a reason, so people aren't flying up and down these roads and causing accidents. I'm like, bro, I was going 37 and a 35. Back off.
Is passing a cop at any speed, is it bold or stupid? Diesel, I would lean the latter. Okay, is it bold or stupid to pass a cop going any speed? I don't care if he's going under the speed limit, Diesel. I just don't know.
For the longest time, I had a car that looked like a cop car. I had a 4-door black Dodge Charger that people would slow down as soon as they saw me every time. It was great. It was great having that car. People always drove safe around me.
It's fantastic. But is that true? Have you guys found that to be true? 9 you're fine and 10 you're mine. And why is it that in my experience, whenever I see something crazy going on, 90% of the time there's a woman behind the wheel? Like it's like you pull up to the car and it's like, man, please don't support the stereotype. Please don't be a woman. Please don't. It's a woman. What's going on there? What am I witnessing there? Why is that the case? 71307 on the text line. That's my experience. I'm just sharing my experience with you. So we went into the fact and we branched off, and which is we always do on the show, go off on tangents. There have been 9 playoff seasons. In those 9 playoff seasons, there have been 36 possible playoff berths. Those 36 possible playoff berths have been inhabited by only 14 different teams. Okay? So the 14 teams that have made the college football playoff are Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Washington, Georgia, Notre Dame, LSU, Michigan, Cincinnati, and TCU. Who's made the most? Alabama's made it 7 times in 9 years. Who's made the second most, Diesel?
Clemson.
Clemson's made it 6 times in 9 years. Who's made it the third most?
Oklahoma.
Close.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, 5 times in 9 years. Oklahoma 4 times in 9 years, Georgia 3 times, Notre Dame twice, Michigan twice, and Oregon, Florida State, Michigan State, Washington. Wow, LSU has only made it the one time they won the national championship. Cincinnati and
Batting
TCU.
1,000.
Yeah, those teams have only made it a single time. When I ask you, if I were to ask you what brand that has not made the college football playoff is the most surprising omission, like when you think about brands in college football, it would probably surprise you if I told you, man, going into year 10, through 9 years of the college football playoff, brother, through 9 years, Penn State has never made the college football playoff. USC has never made the college football playoff. Tennessee, Texas, Florida, and Miami have not made the college football playoff. Auburn, Texas A&M have not made the college football playoff. And then how about Oklahoma State has never made the college football playoff? You have a who's who list of really good historic programs in college football that maybe haven't been real good late. Florida Gators, here's looking at you, that have not made the college football playoff. And, you know, most surprising to me, most surprising that hasn't gotten in, these will all go USC 1, Florida 2, Penn State 3. Most surprising programs that haven't been. Miami is up there as well. Miami. Texas, with all of their financial advantages, have not made a college football playoff.
I'm not confused about Southern Cal because they've been garbage for a number of years. Now they're finally making their way back, but that's only a new thing. I think of those, like, you think of who's actually been good over the past 9 years. I think the most surprising is Penn State. That they've got to be the most. They've got all this hype year in and year out. They have all this talent. They're sending guys to the NFL, and they just can't get over the hump. They're that team that loses a game every year that they shouldn't lose. Maybe Penn Stating should be a word, but Miami is a false flag every year. They're thin as Charmin. You know, they're bargain brand toilet paper. If you press too hard, you might touch something you don't want to touch. So I'm not surprised that Miami hadn't made it there at all.
Well, Diesel, I'm not surprised that Florida hasn't made it, that Miami hasn't made it. When you consider their form, I'm surprised that the program itself hasn't made it, given their history, right? Like,
eliteness is hard to achieve.
Right, given the lineage of their history. So if I were to ask you guys the most surprising brand that hasn't made the college football playoff, who would you say is that brand? I'll count down from 10 to 1, Brad Crawford's 10 most dangerous teams. From 10 to 1, most likely teams that have never made the college football playoff to make the college football playoff. Brad has Tulane number 10, UCLA, and he's talking about only this year, okay? Tulane number 10, UCLA 9, A&M 8, Kansas State 7. South Carolina 6 feels like pandering to me, Diesel. It feels like he's pandering. He is a Gamecock fan.
Doesn't he live in Columbia?
It's like he lives right over the border in North Carolina. 6, South Carolina, to me, this year feels like pandering. There's only 5 teams more likely to make their first playoff berth than South Carolina this year. 5 Tennessee, 4 Wisconsin, 3 Penn State, 2 USC, and 1 Texas. So who are the next 10 to get it? Diesel, I know you respect Tulane.
Yeah.
But here is what I would say to you guys.
What I heard from Brad there was a whole bunch of brands that if they have even a good season, you know, they have a one-loss season, and the one loss they look pretty good. Even if they're just barely winning a lot of those games, they have that brand that you want to put that brand into the college football playoff. There's a considerable amount of helmet scouting going on in Brad's list.
Oh, I agree. Well, Diesel, my
that's all it is at this point is helmet scouting because we have no stats on these.
Right.
Teams.
If you said to me, who are the next 10 schools to make the college football playoff for the first time, I would give you helmet scouting as well. Here's mine: Penn State, USC, Utah, Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, UCLA, Florida, Ole Miss, and Miami. Those would be my next 10 in.
I'd have to see 10 teams that are really on the rise that have won more games year over year and they've looked impressive even in losses in big game situations over the past 2 seasons.
I'm so glad you said that. Here, I have a list in front of me by the College Football News of the 25 winningest teams never to make the college football playoff. Diesel, who is number 1 on the list? Winningest team not to make the college football playoff?
Penn State.
Diesel. Appalachian State.
Are you talking about over the last 9 years? I thought you meant history-wise.
Wins since 2014.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Appalachian State is the winningest team not to make the college football playoff. 80 wins since 2014. Boise State and Wisconsin are tied for second with 76. Mm-hmm. Appalachian State is the winningest team. And guess who is going to have that door cracked open for them when the playoff expands? There's going to be a group of 5 in that every single year. And if the group of 5's presence in the playoff makes it so that the App States, the Boise States, the San Diego States, makes it so that those schools are now getting 4- and 5-star players, that's the most interesting thing to me, Diesel.
Yeah.
Is this really going to spread the wealth? Or are the big-time athletes still going to view the App States of the world as the little engine that could program?
Well, it all, of course, depends on what the exact rules are for who gets in. Is it guaranteed the top 6 conference champions getting in? Because that's the only way to guarantee it. I mean, there's always that's
going to happen.
There's always that group of 5 team that hovers in that 11 to 16 range. Some of the best group of 5s hover right there. I think Coastal Carolina achieved somewhere around a 12 or a 13 in the COVID season. I think I might be wrong on the exact number or what year it was, but those are the teams that would get left out when you're also backdoor looking at concerns like who's going to bring the best ratings, who's going to travel the most fans, which fan bases are the largest.
That better not come into any discussion.
Right. It shouldn't, but I think it absolutely does. At least it's in the backs of their minds. But if there's a guaranteed contractual spot for group of 5s in this expanded 12-team playoff, yeah, I could see App State getting in. I could see the rumor is San Diego State. I don't think it's finalized at this point. They're headed to the Pac-12. Boise State would be in on a very short list for one of the first teams to achieve that. Obviously, Cincinnati's moving into the Big 12. I could see Coastal on that list. I could see Louisiana on that list. Conference USA, maybe Liberty having a shot because Liberty
Tulane
picks some plays who they want.
Who would be, because BYU and UCF are no longer going to be group of 5 teams. They're going to the Big 12.
Correct.
BYU somewhat surprisingly giving up their independence. So who is the next group of 5? You know as well as I do, Diesel, as unfortunate as this is, it's very unlikely to be this year that a group of 5 gets in when it's 4. Cincinnati's the only team that has ever done that. But when we go to 12 teams in 2024, and when it is the top 6 conference champions and 6 at large, who is the group of 5 that's going to get it? Is it Tulane? Is it Memphis, San Diego State, Boise State, Appalachian State? Who is the group of 5 that gets it? And if I'm going to highlight the parity problem that exists in college football with one stat, folks, it's this. 9 years of the college football playoff, a total of 14 teams have made it. A total of 7 teams have multiple berths.
I'm blown away that the conversation hasn't come up, especially now in the NIL era when you have a handful, 5, 6, 10 maybe programs that people say these are the programs that will have all the money to throw at players in NIL, that we haven't heard the conversation also push towards reducing scholarship limits. You can't have this many guys on your roster if you also have the most money to pay the best players to come to your roster. So if you're talking about an Alabama, 85 scholarships, now you're reducing it to 75. The guys who are 76 through 85, guess what? You're going to Ole Miss. And the guys who are 76 through 85 at Ole Miss, guess what? You're going to Troy. If you're, and on down the line.
Is that what's going to happen when we expand the playoff? Are more 4 stars, 5 stars going to be willing to go to places like Memphis, San Diego State, Tulane, Boise State? Or is it still going to be the rich get richer? Because this parity problem, the same thing that is benefiting college basketball, NIL and the transfer portal made for the most unpredictable March Madness we ever saw. First March Madness ever that did not have a 1, 2, or 3 seed in the Final Four. Are we going to see that now that the college football playoff expands and the App States of the world can have an annual seat at the table? All right, my friends, your thoughts on that? Welcome, 71307 on the text line. Mad Craft already chiming in on the YouTube channel. If you have not signed in on YouTube, we would love to have you on the YouTube channel at the Fan Upstate on YouTube. Please be so kind as to hit subscribe. Coming up next, we'll continue this discussion. I will tell you something I learned about Mother's Day and why the NFL is bordering on increasing the divorce rate in America. That's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Morant and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Wonderful to have you guys with us here on a Monday edition of the show. Let's see what you guys are saying. On the text line, 71307. Obvious teams that surprisingly haven't made the CFP are the two richest programs, Texas and Texas A&M. Also Southern Cal. So says Spur Daddy. Spur Daddy, that was the perfect length text.
I think the truth is you can't buy competence.
Right.
You can't always buy competency at this.
Texter says Mark would be the only one who would cry. Listen to this. No, I don't see Diesel crying at a cop. Texter says, I only go 10% over the speed limit. 10%. So at 35 miles an hour, he's only going 38 and a half.
You're doing math while you're driving, Texter?
Wow.
You have a calculator
dangerous.
Nearby.
Texter says, Mark, that's great. Now you're going to have angry birds and cougars after you. What do you call an angry bird that's also a cougar? A catbird?
What is he saying? Does he offer us insult?
Guys, I'm just sharing my observation with you. I'm just sharing my observation. If it's my observation, how is that offensive to anybody? Like, it's what I have observed.
That was buffoonery. That was complete and total buffoonery.
I wish it wasn't my observation, but it has been my observation. Tiger fan here, but I'll admit we have the easiest route. That won't be popular among Tiger fans. But Texter, you are the fan that I respect the most. You have the ability to be objective.
At least you admit it.
Yes. If a police officer says, do you know why I pulled you over? Say, if you forgot, then I'm not reminding you.
If you can make them laugh, there's a good chance they'll say, you know what? Be on your way.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You know, I've heard confirmed stories from the state of Alabama where if you get pulled over by a cop and you are on the right side of that rivalry, you get out. And if you are on the wrong side of whatever side that cop is, you get a ticket.
I don't have anything on my vehicle that identifies my fan base.
Oh,
my fandom. Do you?
Oh, no, nothing on my ride. Is James Franklin really a great coach, or does Penn State just have the tradition to still get talent? He didn't turn Vanderbilt around. Well, he kind of did. He had Vanderbilt in the top 25. Having Vandy in the top 25 is like winning a national championship there. But he got an extension at Penn State, having a worse record than got Dan Mullen fired at Florida. Say that again for the folks in the back. James Franklin got an extension for having a worse record and winning percentage than the one that got Dan Mullen fired at Florida.
It's despicable.
You know, Penn State, every year, Diesel, we talk about the team for which tomorrow never comes. It was Tennessee for a number of years. Before that, it was Clemson for a number of years. Is that team now Penn State?
I think they're washed up, buddy. They're done. They're out of here.
Every single year. The drops have been on point today.
Tallahassee Todd. We hadn't heard from Tallahassee Todd in a while, but we got a little bit of his beautiful stylings here on the show.
Texter says, oh, my God, I thought we were done doing sound bites on the show.
Why?
Why? I love them.
Boom,
absolutely love them. Guys, I had a unique Mother's Day experience yesterday. I guess, Diesel, it's probably not advisable for the day after Mother's Day to come on the radio and say, why is it that when I see crazy things happen on the road, 9 times out of 10, it's a Sheila at the wheel? Probably the day you want to say that it's not the day after Mother's Day, you know, but I can't I can't walk that back right now. It's already out there into the ether. It is. I had a unique Mother's Day experience this year. And I have a piece of advice for all you guys. Like my whole life, all I had to do on Mother's Day was like focus on my mom. That was it. Like my whole life. Like 45 years of existence. I only was like, man, that is next level when you have not 1, not 2, but 3 moms to be thinking about. My mom, my wife, my wife's mom, my mother-in-law. That is next level. And I think what I've learned from this experience this year is that, number one, I had no time to be really on social media all weekend. I didn't have time to be watching much in the way of sports over the weekend. Efforts must be doubled. And we doubled them. And by all accounts, I think we did a real nice job. I think all moms felt appreciated. And I think that's it, guys. I think the key to Mother's Day, the key to having a successful Mother's Day is somewhat unquantifiable. You have to make your mom and the moms you're celebrating feel special. And that's it. If she feels like you went to the store at the last second to get flowers, she's probably not going to feel very special. So what we did yesterday, and again, those of you who do gifts and surprises and dinners for multiple moms every single year, I tip my cap to you, because this was my first experience doing that. I enjoyed the experience. It was a lot. You know, a week ago Sunday, Diesel, we did Mother's Day with my mom because she was still in town. So we took her out to dinner. We took her out to a movie. We had gifts. We had flowers. We had conversation. So my mom's Mother's Day was a week ago Sunday. And then yesterday was the Mother's Day for my wife and the Mother's Day for my mother-in-law. And we did that yesterday, too. We went to go see the new Guardians of the Galaxy in 3D. And so we get up, I sleep in, and the first thing I do, the living room is destroyed. And I said, Jackson, we've got to clean up the living room. So Jackson cleaned up the living room, got all of his toys out of there. Then I was making Angela's favorite meal that I make. I make this turkey sausage with sweet potatoes, cinnamon, onions, kind of deal. And so I made that. And then we're wrapping gifts, made a late run to the store. Jackson's making a card for his grandma. And like doing gifts, cooking, cleaning up, wrapping gifts, late run to the store, all this stuff. And then the touch that we had was we have a window where Jackson can sit in the window and tell me when everyone's coming home. So like when mom was coming home, mom's car is coming down the street. He can see the car coming down the street. When Nana is her name, is coming down the street, he can see the car coming down the street. And so when I would get the alert that they were coming, we'd get all the gifts and we were right behind the door. So they'd open the door, they'd come in the door, and you get the whole surprise moment. You get the whole surprise moment. By the way, Diesel, there was a gay custodian that drummed up the courage to come out of the closet to his family. What did he say to them?
You go ahead. You tell me.
Supplies. There you go. So anyway, that was our day, and we did surprises, and we had flowers, and we had presents, and we cleaned up the house, and we cooked, and we went to a movie. And I feel like, basically, ladies and gentlemen, if you just like if you make the moms in your life feel special, then you win. That's the thing. That's the deal for me. You just gotta like somehow, some way, find a way to make them feel special through the different things that you guys do. Hope it was successful for you guys as well. And again, for those of you that celebrate multiple moms on Mother's Day, that is next level. And I realized, man, that is going to be the rest of my life now. You know what I mean? My mom, Angela.
You got to do a second Christmas, just pastel.
That's it, man. That's it. That's a challenging day, but a day with a lot of good to it as well. The other thing I want to get to is this. I believe, Diesel, that the NFL is really working hard on increasing the divorce rate in this country. You know, Diesel, can you find me the current divorce rate in America? Married couples in America, what is the current divorce rate? I think it's over 50%. And I was thinking about this. You know what the NFL has done with this new schedule release that they just had? They're giving us games on 4 consecutive Saturdays in a row. Normally in the playoffs, we get 2 straight Saturdays in a row. We're now getting 4 straight Saturdays in a row. So what you say, the NFL is giving us more football, more time to watch football. How is that a bad thing? Well, follow me here for a minute. They're also now hitting us with Black Friday games. Okay? Black Friday games. So you have games all day Turkey Day, which I've lamented to you guys in the past. I come from a family where if I turn on sports on a holiday, my family says to me, "Really, Mark? Really? It's family time." It's not like in my family, you are committing a sin if you turn on the TV during a holiday. And it makes it hard to have this job during holidays because everybody says, "Really, Mark? You're going to watch sports during a holiday? Really?" And so if you think about this, the NFL doesn't care about your marriage. I get some grace because of what I do for a living. Like, I've got to know to some degree what the hell I'm talking about. If Angela's ever frustrated at my sports watching, I can at least say, "Hey, you know what, babe? I really got to watch this for the show. I got to know what I'm talking about." I have that grace. You guys do not. And now the NFL is going to do not 2 Saturdays a year of NFL action, but 4 Saturdays a year of NFL action. They're going to do still the whole day of football on Thanksgiving, but now Black Friday games as well. And it's going to be creating a lot of moments in your household where your wife, your fiance, your significant other is going to be looking at you and saying, "Really? Whatever your name is. Really, Chris? Really, Madden Greer? Really, Spur Daddy? Really, Michael Stathakis? Really, Diesel?" Ashley may not have to worry about Diesel as much with the NFL. But, the question is, from me to you, do you guys believe that the NFL has finally bitten off more than they can chew with all this? Like we talked last week about how brilliantly they monopolize the calendar, right? The only month where they don't have some major event is next month in June. The only month where they don't have some major event is June. The only one. Okay? And now are they becoming too greedy? Are they finally becoming too greedy? Are they finally biting off more than they can chew? 4 straight Saturdays now, Diesel, of NFL football. Black Friday football.
Yep.
All these Thursday night games. So Thursday night, Black Friday, 4 Saturdays in a row, Sunday, Monday night football. Increasing the divorce rate in America. What is the divorce rate in America, by the way?
Well, believe it or not, it's kind of tough to get an exact number for what you're looking for. But in 2020, granted, obviously there was something going on in 2020, but 2020 had the lowest divorce rate in 50 years, which is fascinating. Imagine being in a marriage that you want to end, but you can't get a divorce because COVID's going on and you can't get a court date. As of right now, it's still between 40 and 50% for first-time marriages, and then it jumps to 60 to 65% for second-time marriages and 70% for third marriages. So that's proof that it works out less and less the more times you try.
So what if it was her second marriage and your first? It's between those two?
I guess. I mean,
wow.
The stats don't get that specific.
70+%. And
for a third marriage.
And what's the second one? 60%?
60%.
Wow.
Maybe it's not her, it's you in that situation. That is clearly what that's trying to tell you. If you divorce someone because you think they're bad, and then you get married a second time, your divorce rate goes up, which means it's you. It's not her, it's you.
Well, I'm one who thinks, Diesel, that anytime a relationship ends, it's never one person's fault. It's never.
I know. I was just being silly.
Right. No, I got you. Like, I feel that. But how do you guys feel? Like, is this too much that the NFL is attempting here right now? They've crossed the line.
Well, I've got a huge problem with what, Thursday nights used to be the group of 5 night. And then the Power 5 said, oh, look at them getting ratings over there. Let's start putting our games on Thursday night. And then MAC is pushed towards Wednesday night, and I'm shocked that Power 5 conferences haven't also considered at least sparing Wednesday night games. I don't know who the hell's watching Wednesday night MAC football. But then the NFL saw, oh, well, they're having some success over there. Let's do that too. And it's like, for crying out loud, why can't each night of the week just be traditionally held for one level of college football? I mean, I think that's one reason, being that people around the South are so ingrained in this tradition of Saturday college football, Sunday NFL. I think that's one reason why a lot of people have a hard time watching NHL hockey or watching the NBA, because the schedule is all over the place. It's not a consistent schedule where you would play a Monday night and a Thursday night, or Monday, Friday, or Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Saturday. You know, it's all over the place schedule-wise, so people really have to pay much closer attention instead of it just being like, oh, it's Saturday, it's football Saturday.
And why was baseball so hell-bent on shortening the games? Because baseball had become a part-time job in terms of committing to it. If you watch every baseball game that your team plays, if you're a diehard Braves fan, I'm going to watch 6 Braves games a week, you're having to commit 20 hours to that.
At that point, get a life.
Right. Get a life. It's a part-time job at that point. What do you guys think? 71307 on the text line. Is the NFL finally becoming too greedy? You know as well as I do in your home that could cause problems. Oh, really? Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving? Oh, watching all day Thanksgiving wasn't enough? Really? Now you're going to do Saturdays as well? ESPN backed off of Thursday Night Football big time because they want to get the best games from the NFL. ESPN sacrificed making Thursday night great again in college football because the NFL wanted to claim Thursday night as well. Is this the last straw? Is this where they jumped the shark, so to speak? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Tiger Pal Rachel getting the early entrant in for our best tweet of the day contest. At the end of every show, we highlight the best YouTube message, the best text we get, and the best tweet. We honor those people at the end of the show. She says, heck no, it's not too much. The more football, the better. Let's go. P.S. My husband would disagree. But, Rachel, that's the thing. It's not more football. You're not getting more football. You're just getting football at different times.
It's getting spread out more.
Getting spread out more in terms of times where you're used to spending family time. Well, now I can't spend family time. I got Saturday NFL, Friday, Black Friday NFL. Are they jumping the shark here? Up next, the curious and sad case of one of South Carolina's own. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate.
Offsides with Mark Ryan.
Only on the upstate.
So I'm going to take just a couple minutes to set this up, and then we're going to dive into this in the next segment. Because if something isn't done about this, this athlete could be joining the all what if athlete list, right? You don't want to end up on the what if athlete list. Odell Beckham Jr. is close to being on the all what if list. Like, he got this chance, 1 year, $15 million with Baltimore. If he acts a fool, he'll have relinquished his last chance and he'll go the way of Antonio Brown. You don't want to be on the what if list in sports, the all-time what if athletes. Len Bias. What if he had not overdosed on drugs the night of the NBA draft? And that's where we are with one of South Carolina's own, Ja Morant. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but this, like, the idiot meter is bouncing off the walls on this. Okay? In March, Ja Morant was found at a club showing off a gun to his Instagram live feed. All of these platforms, Twitter has a live feed, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. He's showing off a gun at the club. He was immediately suspended by the Memphis Grizzlies, immediately suspended by the NBA for 8 games, ordered to go undergo counseling on this. He had 2 counseling sessions. And then, what do you know? What a coincidence. He's back just in time for the playoffs. And, you know, Ja Morant is a young kid. And if you're thinking, okay, Mark, this is the NBA, I'm not into the NBA. This is not an NBA topic, okay? This is a societal topic. And this is a topic that asks the question, are we in some way wronging our athletes in some way, shape, or form? Ja Morant comes into the NBA at the age of 19. He's 23 years of age right now. Over the weekend, after undergoing all of this counseling, 8-game suspension by the NBA, after undergoing all of this, Ja Morant is again in a vehicle over the weekend. He's got a gun in his hand. This is the exact thing that we went through in March. The exact thing that everybody said, oh my God, he is so immature. And I want to have with you guys a roundtable discussion on this with you. Why did this happen? How did we get here? All right. What should we do about it? That's next. The sad case of Ja Morant, South Carolina's own. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Can I get an amen? Fantastic to have you guys with us here on the show. Texter says, congrats to Clemson baseball on their season turnaround. Our team is roosted in the chicken coop for the season. He's not
roosted or roasted?
He said roosted. I have no idea. What do you think is going to happen if you add another game to everybody's schedule? Need to find somewhere to put it. That's what's going on with the NFL right now. Texter says, have some empathy for you, Mark. I do, because my family has always had the game playing in the background during Thanksgiving. Yeah, my family's like, oh, Mark, it's the holiday. It's time for family time. There's no, remember Tom Hanks, there's no crying in baseball. There's no sports on the holidays. It's family time. That's like I've gotten that my whole life.
I just go park on the couch and watch football, even if I'm not that into it.
Really? Good luck. They pull the plug out, Diesel. They pull the plug out. That's how I grew up. Texter says, here we were thinking we had these two awesome NBA players drafted from South Carolina. One can't stay healthy, and one can't control himself and thinks he's above the rules. So says Spur Daddy. Let's see here. So yeah, guys. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let's have that conversation. And part of this conversation is going to be you educating me a little bit, because I see Ja Morant has a gun in his hand at the club. I see Ja Morant has a gun in his hand in the car. I see swift and immediate action. And it's a big deal to me because I'm not a gun guy. Like, I don't own guns. I'm like, man, like, that's not a good look. I'm not sure if I'd want that to be the face of my franchise. At the same time, Diesel, and ladies and gentlemen, Offsiders, I honestly don't know why it's as big of a deal as it is nationwide, because you're allowed to carry a gun. So, okay, Ja Morant has a gun. Like, why? I'm not saying this isn't a big deal. What I'm saying is I don't know the rules. I don't know the laws, because I'm not a gun-owning member of society. It's not something I've had to worry about. So help me understand, if you guys would, exactly where Ja Morant is committing this felony in the eyes of public perception.
So I don't know what state Ja legally resides in. Does he hold his legal residence in South Carolina, where his family's from? Does he hold his legal residency in Tennessee, where his team plays? So that obviously makes a big difference as far as what the law is. What NBA collective bargained policy, though, is what's really happening here. So that's what this issue is in violation of. Ja Morant, in March, was seen out at a strip club with a gun in his hand. It is against the collectively bargained policy of the NBA for players to bring firearms with them on team events. So number one, that is where the first violation stood as far as the NBA is concerned. Now, if Ja was in a club and he was drinking and he had his firearm, that's where that could get you into legal trouble. I believe they were in Colorado when this happened. And I looked it up very, very briefly. The rules are, it is a misdemeanor to have consumed alcohol and to have a firearm on you. But so it's not as far as the law is concerned, having a gun on you and drinking in Colorado is not a massive concern. The concern is that he violated the NBA's policy. The NBA slapped his wrist, gave him a 3-game suspension, 2-game suspension, and said, now don't you do it again. And then 2 months later, here he is doing it again. And that is the big concern and why this is an issue with the NBA. Now, any issue that may be concerning if he was drinking and driving the vehicle, if he was drinking and driving and holding a gun, brandishing a weapon, because that would legally be considered brandishing a weapon, having the gun in your hand, raised, visible in a vehicle that is moving to other people in other cars, that is legally brandishing that weapon. Depends on the state and what the laws surrounding brandishing entail and the punishment there. So I think what this is he violated the NBA's policy. They said, don't do it again. And he's violated again. And now this is elevated to a much, much bigger issue.
Where he could be suspended half a year?
Yeah.
An entire season? And why would Ja Morant make it obvious that he's holding a weapon in not one but 2 IG Live posts? He would do it because he thinks it's cool. He thinks it's hard. He wants to portray an image of himself that, yeah, I was kind of skinny and scrawny my whole life, but look at me. I'm hard. I'm authentic. I'm real. On some level, to him, it's cool to be doing that. Like he's real with the kind of people that he wants to be real with when he is seen doing that. And it's freaking sad and it's unfortunate. And Diesel, I wonder if on some level the NBA is letting these kids down because each and every one of them is more valuable to their teams than their coach. All that they have to do is go to their GM or go to their president, go to their owner and say, I'm going to sign elsewhere if you don't replace the coach. And they replace them. These guys are coddled. There is no tough love. You know, like we spent some time last week going after Bob Huggins. You think Bob Huggins coddles anybody? No. Like there is some of what Bob Huggins teaches that I'm sure are good lessons for these kids. But Ja Morant grows up, goes in the AAU circuit, becomes famous at Murray State, is just coddled and fawned over. And he's 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Has the NBA, in some respect, let these guys down?
It's a major maturity issue.
Right.
That is for sure. And I looked this up because some people may be asking the question, how is this situation potentially similar to the Gilbert Arenas situation in 2010, where he faced 50 games suspension for a similar incident? It was similar in that it involved a gun. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot of similarity. He and a teammate there, Javaris Crettenton, brought guns into the locker room and drew guns on each other in the locker room, which obviously could have gotten really, really bad. So the similarities end with NBA player had a gun.
And I think also you have to ask yourself, you know, this is somebody who feels like there's no system of checks and balances for Ja Morant. Wherever there is absolute power, there is abuse of power. Diesel, I look, is the Joe Paterno situation at Penn State analogous to Ja Morant? Probably not in any way, shape, or form. But Joe Paterno, when he was losing his faculties, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he was losing his faculties, had this good old boy system where Jerry Sandusky could be there and do what he's doing, and Joe Paterno either turns a blind eye or is so oblivious he doesn't even realize it's happening under his watch. There's no system of checks and balances for that guy. Is there a system of checks and balances for Nick Saban at Alabama?
Well,
you tell me.
We're waiting to see, obviously, what kind of punishment might be handed down by the NBA. I mean, we just saw this last week with the Bob Huggins situation. His contract was drastically changed. Now, you and I both believe he should have been fired for what he said, but his contract was changed from being a multi-year contract to a one-year contract. So it's essentially year over year. He's got to have that renewed. And he had his contract reduced by $1 million a year. And I can't imagine Bob Huggins was making more than about $3 or $4 million. So that's the 25% potentially pay decrease. Now, here's what I need to see in this situation. I need, number one, Ja is going to have to go through a lengthy suspension game-wise. Number two, he's going to have his contract significantly reduced so that this sends a message to other players. You cannot behave this way, or we will take half your money.
And that's what's got to happen. That's where we are. Folks, in any way, do you see a way in which the NBA may have let down Ja Morant? by letting the proverbial tail wag the dog without any sort of difficult coaching, with star players calling all the shots. They answer to nobody. Is the system partly responsible for what's going on?
If Ja gets to sit out and still get paid, even though this incident occurred multiple times, he's never going to learn anything.
Let's get to Rich in Chicago. So cool, man, that we have a national listener who hears me do shows on CBS Sports Radio across the country that is now, and I always, each time we're on CBS Sports Radio, I invite the national audience to tune into the local show. Rich is doing that. He's becoming a P1 on the local signal as well. Rich, great to hear from you, my buddy. I want to let you know, Rich, I'll be on this Saturday, May 20th, from 5 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. All right, my friend?
That's good. You'll get our pals here in Chicago. You're becoming popular up here. I put my friends on as we talk.
Thank you so much.
But who better to talk to about Morant? It's funny. That's exactly the reason I called, because I want to give you the feedback up here, because as you might suspect, it's different regionally in terms of this guy's getting killed up here, just in terms of the whole scenario. And my friends, we're all sports fans, and most of us played sports. And I said to them, I said, look, and I said this when he got drafted, and that's why I'm talking to you, being that you live in South Carolina. How can a guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he high school player of the year in South Carolina?
No, he was actually not. He was under-recruited in South Carolina, slipped through the cracks.
Well,
yeah, he went to Murray State.
Yes, that was the whole reason I asked, because I said to my friends, if this kid was that dominant in high school in a state the size of South Carolina, how did he end up in Murray State unless there's off-the-court problems? That, to me, would be a red flag. This guy could play anywhere. He could have played at Duke, Carolina. He's unbelievable in terms of just skill sets. So that would be the first red flag. The second one, that his defenders, because I was on a talk show up here, I know the guys here pretty well, so we kind of chimed in, and behind my call were the apologists for Morant. And here's the scoop from the apologists, and you can clarify this. They said, well, he's a country boy from South Carolina. He grew up hunting with guns. I don't think so. I think he's on the Allen Iverson path of being a gangster, and it's cool to be a gangster. And here's the reason why. And I gave him the reasons. Memphis is the 9th-ranked city in the country for homicides and murders per capita. It's a culture of gun violence that goes back way, way back. Now, that would suggest that he's running with the wrong crowd based on the team he's playing for. Because to your point about laws, I know a lot about them, because we've got, believe it or not, when you look at Memphis, Chicago's 28 per capita. Memphis is ahead of Atlanta and Chicago on homicides per capita. Not a good place for a guy like Morant. But by state, there's a carry license, as you know, being from Florida. Every state regulates it by carry, and you don't violate anything. They've got stand your ground. They've got all of these kind of gray areas that he legally in Tennessee can carry a gun with a carry permit. Now, giving him a gun is like giving me, it's like giving whiskey to the Indians. That's crazy. And with the crowd that he's running with, there's got to be something done drastically. The word we get up here, being an NBA city, is that the commissioner is up against the hot pipes on this one, and up to and including, and you, I think, mentioned this earlier when I was listening, half the season, a 40-game suspension. And then round 3, if there's strike 3, he's going to get tossed.
Yep.
And the reason that's a problem, trying to emulate Iverson, just so that's a little bit before your time, and your younger listeners won't know this, but he was tremendous, similar background, and he's bankrupt. He's destitute. He went through $175 million. So you can't have a guy that's risking all this money. Somebody needs to get Morant. I think your producer said it's maturity or immaturity. It's way more than that. It's got to be the coach. It's got to be surrounding him with more positive influences. This guy's in trouble. and it's only getting worse. I wanted to find out from you, did he have a history of that as a teenager growing up in Carolina?
Yeah, no. And Rich, thanks so much for the call, the kind words, man. It's great to have you chiming in. You know, we are increasingly becoming a society that texts and not calls. But I want all of our male and female listeners to know that your calls are welcome here. This is not an intimidating place for you to call in. I know we have big opinions, but we welcome your calls. We really do. And, you know, like we've got national callers from other cities now calling our local shows. And it's awesome. It's really awesome to see. So the local audience, you guys are more than welcome to call in as well. Ironically enough, Ja Morant did not necessarily grow up on the wrong side of the tracks. Okay. Ja Morant was not heavily recruited because he was a beanpole that nobody knew anything about. And South Carolina got in late on Ja Morant, whereas Zion Williamson, everybody knew Zion. Nobody knew Ja Morant. Everyone got in on Ja Morant late. And Ja Morant chose to dance with the girl that brought him because Murray State had been recruiting him for 3 years. South Carolina came in Ja Morant's senior year, and Ja said, no, where were you the last 2 years? So he went to Murray State. But it is so disturbing to me that a guy on his level, right, feels like he needs to brandish this weapon to show that he's to gain street cred. Why does Ja Morant need street cred with people?
He doesn't. Ja Morant is a star already. And to Rich's point there, Tennessee does not require a permit for a handgun carry, either concealed or not. You do not have to have a permit to open carry or conceal carry in Tennessee, so long as you are a resident of the state of Tennessee, a legal resident of the state of Tennessee. And I would assume there's something involved with not having any kind of a criminal past. Of course, like you can't just open carry if you are if you have a criminal past. They could stop you and check you for that. Now, that only applies to handguns. That does not apply to the carrying of rifles or shotguns. Again, it doesn't speak to Ja's state residency status. If he's a legal resident of the state of Tennessee, then that would apply to him. If he is a resident of another state, that would not apply to him.
But so, see, Diesel, it's possible that legally he's not doing
correct.
Something wrong.
Correct.
So again, like my question is, and we got a text here, and we'll come back on this, guys, but we've got a text that says, you know, I know it's not a good look, but where's the same energy for our state representatives posting pics with their children? I saw one today, Diesel.
It's terrible when they do it. It's terrible when they do it.
They all got AK-47s,
yeah.
The state representatives. Well, number one, it's a bad look. Number two, they're in their house. But again, I am not saying this isn't a big deal. I'm saying help me understand why it is a big deal when it doesn't seem like Ja Morant is breaking any laws in so doing.
Again, it is a big deal to the NBA because the NBA and player representatives collectively bargained provisions. Section 9, Article 6, which explicitly prohibits players possessing a firearm, quote, of any kind in numerous settings. Players must also notify their team about firearms and provide proof of registration. Per the NBA's collective bargaining agreement, players are banned from possessing firearms or similar deadly weapons when present at a team or NBA facility or traveling on NBA-related business, such as a road trip, which is what makes Ja's incident in the Denver strip club such a big deal, because it directly violates the rules so set forth by the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. You may argue Second Amendment constitutional rights, whatever, all you want till you're blue in the face. But it is in the NBA's collective bargaining agreement that you cannot do that. That is where the violation the first time around came from. The second time around is because Ja flung it in Adam Silver's face by doing it a second time, which the NBA, believe it or not, doesn't think very kindly of.
I mean, does Ja have a leg to stand on in the second time around saying this was not a team function? I'm in the off season. What I do in my car, I'm not doing anything illegal here.
Yes.
Because it seems to be like, the Memphis Grizzlies said Ja Morant is instantly banned from all team activities. Like they said this second time.
That's PR.
And it's just like, on some level, if you're Ja Morant's representation, you could say, what did he do wrong here? And the NBA could say, we don't want that image out there. And the representation could come back and say, what did we do wrong here?
It could also be in violation of some sort of terms that he came to with the NBA following his first incident. We don't know that. First incident, very much in violation of the CBA. Second incident, on the surface, not in violation of the CBA. However, that one probably does have actual legal ramifications of brandishing a gun in public.
Folks, what do you guys think of this? The sad case of Ja Morant not learning his lesson once, not learning his lesson twice. Is he set to enter the all what if list of athletes?
Texter makes a very good point, says he's not learning the lesson. Listen to what Shannon Sharp said about this. There's one of my favorite lines from a song that I've heard in a while, Mark, says, how many times do I have to learn my lesson before I learn my lesson this time?
That's it. That's really it. We've got a couple of thoughts about this from throughout the sports world to share with you when we come back. And it's something now that is becoming widely known that some of you jumped all over me about a couple years ago. That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Sides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, discussing the sad story of Ja Morant, who has seemingly the world at his fingertips and cannot get out of his own way, keeps brandishing guns, flashing guns. The deeper question is why? Why is this a thing? Why are you only real if you're flashing guns? Why is there a desire to be a gangster? Let's get to Tallahassee Todd, who is up next, joining us here on this particular topic. Hey, Todd, good to hear from you, bud. You're Offsides right here in the Fan Upstate.
What's going on, man? I couldn't help but to hear about what's that fella named Ja Morant?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, back in my day, and my day is gone, but I'm older now, you had two things coming up. You can't live on the crutch that you're from the South and you raised on a single parent. This is me. There is a reaction and there is an action. If you do wrong, you suffer consequences. In my household, you told do something one time only. Just keeping it real, being gangster. In my household, it didn't work. Mom didn't play. Mom laid down the law, and that's how it was.
Now, Tallahassee Todd, let me ask you this. Why is it cool for Ja Morant? Like, why does he feel compelled to show everybody that he's a gangster? Like, why is that cool?
I think with today's media outlet, everybody wants to be cool. I think that it's an image. If you're flashing a pistol or a gun, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. He has talent. He has too much talent and too much money. Pardon me if I'm wrong, correct me. I wouldn't be doing it. I can't knock him. I can't judge him. That's not my place. But my deal is, you got millions of kids who want to go to the NBA and won't make it there. You're there. Separate the mirror image versus reality. Let the thug life, let them do what they want to do. You're making millions of dollars. I want to see the money that he's making. I'm 52 years old now. These young kids got it made. Some of them, they just don't realize it. I hate to say it. He's too talented to be getting in any kind of trouble like that. Just anybody. It's not a color issue. It is a moral. To me, it's based on your morals.
It's a morality issue.
I haven't watched them.
Right.
I got a respect for the game. I love the game. But I hate to see somebody waste their life on nonsense. I really do.
It's really something. Tallahassee Todd, I truly appreciate your perspective. And my favorite thing that you said is, like, being from the South is not an excuse. Being from a rural area is not an excuse. You know, growing up on the wrong side of the tracks is not an excuse. I want to share with you a couple of viewpoints that I found on social media today. The first one is from an inner city guy who does not have, he's not a well-known guy, but I thought his perspective on Ja Morant was interesting. Why is Ja Morant, South Carolina's own, behaving this way?
This is what I see in the Ja Morant boy. He never got to be a thug. He never got to be a gangster because he was so good at basketball. But there's an innate desire inside of him that wants to live out this kind of lifestyle. I think he's a wannabe gangster. I don't think the boy is tough at all. I think if that boy spent 60 days in that 60-day lockup thing, like how they do on the A&E channel, I think the boy would break.
That's one take, right? He wants to be a gangster. Why? He wants to show that he's tough. Why? Well, he's not really that tough. There's a show on Netflix, Inside the World's Toughest Prisons. I watch that. Suddenly, I don't feel very tough either. Here is a frequent guest of ours, Jake Crane of Crane & Company, talking about Ja Morant's situation.
Saying you are what you eat couldn't be more true. The final point is the reason that I think Ja's mainly doing this. It's looked upon as cool. Now imagine being super rich, famous, and an iconic basketball player, only to not feel good enough unless people think you are some type of gangster. The truth is, Ja Morant is a much better example of what a successful man is when he isn't trying to pretend to be a gangster. He's providing for his family. He's thriving in his craft, and he's giving everyone around him that matters a better life and better opportunities. That's what a real badass looks like. When you dig into Morant's background, he isn't some kid from the wrong side of the tracks, and that's okay. There are badasses that have come from hard and soft backgrounds. We live in a society, however, that glorifies a lifestyle that shouldn't be an option, but if it is, it should be the last option, and that's being in some type of street life. We should glorify the men who do it the right way without having to wave a gun or try and convince people that you're really about that life. Now, outside of himself, actions like these are setting the wrong example for the young people who look up to Ja. They see that lifestyle glorified in our culture and by guys like Ja Morant, and it's just another example of it. Now, I really hope Morant figures it out, because when he's right, he is amazing and captivating to watch. But he wouldn't be the first person to waste what could be legendary talent because they're too busy trying to be something they weren't.
What do you think, Diesel?
Dead on. Dead on, yeah. You said it yourself. We live in a society where people don't talk to each other anymore very often. We are more disconnected from each other than we ever have been. We put a lot more stock in the thoughts and opinions of people we don't see face to face on a daily basis. We don't care what our family members say. We don't care what our friends say. We care what the internet thinks about us. And it's possible that Ja Morant puts entirely too much stock in the fact that the people around him and the people that he reads posting about him on social media don't think that he's some tough street guy. And so he's got to go out there and he's got to run with this crowd that gives him a little more street cred. He's got to do things on Instagram Live and in the clubs, like brandishing weapons that make him seem like more of a tough street guy. Whatever happened to just keeping to yourself, keeping to your craft, and being the best you could be at that? He's going to squander all of his God-given talent by making dumb decisions. And he's lucky to this point that thus far he's only run afoul of the NBA's CBA policies. Not that he hasn't run afoul of the wrong person and wound up with a leaky hole in his body.
The only thing I can relate to about this Ja Morant thing is the size thing. Like, he grew up scrawny, wasn't recruited by the big schools because he was scrawny and tiny and small for his age. We've talked about, short man syndrome in the past. What does that mean? You puff your chest out. Guys, I was bullied a lot when I was going through school. This is the only smidgen of this that I can relate to. I was bullied a lot. And the end of my freshman year of high school, here were my dimensions: 5'3", 103 pounds, glasses and braces. I'm 15 years old and 103 pounds, glasses, braces, end of freshman year. Puberty, what's that, right? Like, it was nowhere close. And so I got pushed down the stairs and punched and do what's called book dropping, where you knock a kid's books out of his hands in the middle of a crowded hallway. He's got to get on his hands and knees and pick them up. And that created something for me that I've had to deal with later in life, honestly. Like this, like guys will say to me, Mark, like, from what I know of you, I don't know how you got this girl that you're with, right? This girl's out of your league. Well, girls got a different side of me than guys did, because I always had a chip on my shoulder around dudes. It was like I wanted to beat guys at everything and then let them know that I beat them at everything. And then girls got a funnier, softer side of me. That's the only part of this that I can relate to Ja Morant on at all. That I think part of this stems from the fact that he was tiny and scrawny and overlooked, and he wants to show everybody that he's hard, that he's hardcore. And I think it's sad. I really think it's sad. We've got Chris Phillips joining us next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Joined right now by Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. You can hear me on the Spurs Up Show every Thursday at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Chris and I have collaborated together quite a bit. He's helping me out with my graphics and things like that from time to time. Today we have posted South Carolina's 2023 season expectations. And A is if the Gamecocks finish 9-3 and second in the SEC East, which would be the natural progression of things because Beamer finished fourth in the East in year one, third in the East in year two. A B would be 8-4, third in the SEC East. That would be success. A disappointing season would earn a C or a D. That'd be 7-5. And a failure would be 6-6 or worse. Chris Phillips, let's open with you here. What is the grade for the Gamecocks in the 2023 season?
Well, Mark, first things first, I appreciate you having me on, and thank you so much for being flexible with your schedule in regards to your appearance on the Daily Crow, our live show. I really appreciate and value your segment on there. But you asked me what will the grade be, Mark, and for me to lock in my grade, I have to lock in my prediction, and I cannot say that I'm quite ready to do that, unfortunately. But I will say I think it's probably going to fall in the B or C range. I'd be really, really surprised if South Carolina fell at that 6 wins or less mark. And I think 9 wins is probably the ceiling or best case scenario for this group. Maybe 10, but I'll say 9 right now. So I think it's either going to be a B or C. I'm just not quite decided in regards to like my game-by-game predictions, if you will.
8-4, 7-5. Those are the records. The 8-4 would get a B, 7-5 would get a C or a D, and those are the expectations that we have set forth for the Gamecocks. We're getting a lot of people chiming in on those and all of the above on this, Chris. And you know, you consider where Beamer is in year 3. Why is it that you think, Chris, that so many folks are expecting a step back? Hey, folks, let's temper expectations this year. Why? You got a new offensive coordinator. The last offensive coordinator led the nation in passes behind the line of scrimmage. Spencer Rattler's back. Juice Wells is back. Why temper the expectations, man? Year 3, we've studied this. Year 3 is when the coaches that are going to work pop. It's unbelievable how accurate that is, Chris. Like it's almost always the same year 3. Why are expectations tempered now?
Yeah, Mark, it's interesting, right? I feel like the Gamecocks are one of the most volatile teams in college football in regards to projections, expectations, rankings. If you want to, you and I have both talked about this on mine and your airwaves, right? I mean, you see some people that have South Carolina ranked in their post-spring top 20, and there's some, you look at Vegas, the over-under win total being at 6. You see some 6-6 projections, predictions, if you will. I think the first thing is the history of Carolina football. Unfortunately, Mark, I think that does play a role, and I think it plays a role negatively in the perception and the view of South Carolina football. And I know you and I have talked before of why that's why it's so important this year in year 3, not just for the trajectory of Shane Beamer, right? That's a very big deal, but the trajectory of South Carolina football and reestablishing what the floor is. Because I think most expect, okay, well, this is South Carolina. And South Carolina, they come into seasons with high expectations, and they come crashing back down to reality, right? They're destined and doomed for 6-6 forever. And so if you can go 8-4 or better and you start to establish a new floor at South Carolina, right? But the best thing that, we talk about culture and changing tradition and changing a program. Mark, you know as well as I do, the thing that changes it most, or the best way to change it, is winning games on the field. You can talk on that talk in the offseason all you want, but you go 8-4 or better this season, I think you really start to change that area. Okay, South Carolina is for real under Shane Beamer. Let's give them more respect going into each and every single season. But I think the real tough thing to identify with this football team, Mark, I mean, like you mentioned, Spencer Rattler is back, Juice Wells returns. There's reasons to believe they could take a step forward defensively. Obviously, Beamer ball to the moon. It's still around, right? Special teams will be a strength of this team. But I think a lot of people, Mark, what they can't figure out about this group is this going to be more like the Gamecocks we saw in the first 10 games last year, who were just flat out incompetent? or those final two against Tennessee and Clemson, do we see them put out a product on the field that's closer to that? Also, I think the schedule, Mark, definitely plays into it, right? I mean, opening up with North Carolina, got to go to Georgia, got to go to Neyland, got to go to Texas A&M. You got the finale against Clemson, right? I mean, the schedule is one of the toughest in college football. So I think that's why you will see a wide range of predictions as we go into this season. And the Gamecocks, it makes them, I think, one of the most interesting and one of the most dangerous teams in college football, because I don't think they're a team, obviously, that's going to push Georgia to win the SEC East, but they're a team that I don't know you necessarily look forward to playing, because you know if they play their A game, if they play their best, you feel like they can go toe-to-toe and maybe beat anybody in the SEC.
I guess what bothers me, Chris, is, look, I spoke to my guy, Kelly Ford, K-Ford Ratings. In terms of having the most difficult schedule in the country to become bowl eligible, the Florida Gators are number 1. The South Carolina Gamecocks are number 2. Trust me when I tell you this, that Florida's program is at a place where the schedule is no excuse. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit of schedule. The schedule is an excuse. Hey, guys, the schedule's tough. We can't act like 7-5 is not good given the schedule. You don't hear that from the top programs, and that's what I want Gamecock fans to graduate from, Chris.
I mean, it's hard not to have schedule fatigue, Mark, as somebody who talks Gamecocks and follows this program so closely, because, I mean, to your point, man, the schedule's tough every year. I mean, granted, you don't play North Carolina every single year in the non-conference, but, I mean, give me a break, right? I mean, the SEC schedule, the SEC slate, it's tough every single year. I mean, you look at Georgia, for example. I know their schedule's not difficult as some, but they play a lot of the same teams and all the other teams. Like, why is everybody labeling Georgia's schedule not hard? Well, it's not just because, like, they're playing 12 cupcakes. It's because Georgia's so much better than everybody else, right? So if you have the caliber of football team you need to guide this slate, I don't know that you look at the schedule quite the same way. Again, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that the Gamecock schedule isn't daunting, because it is. Whoever penciled it in that you got to go to Neyland, to Athens, and to College Station, and to Missouri, who for some reason you can't beat. You got to make all those road trips in the same year. I mean, I feel like that was just cruel and unusual punishment. But either way, to your point, Mark, I mean, you can't use the schedule as an excuse, because if you do that, you'll be using it as an excuse forever. I mean, the schedule's always been tough. It's tough every single year, and you're eventually going to have to find a way to overcome that and become part of other teams' tough schedules, right? I mean, you can't just say, we got to play Florida, we got to play A&M, we got to play Tennessee, got to play Georgia. What about we got to play South Carolina? Like, when's that going to become a thing, right? So to your point again, man, I mean, I don't think, it's something you certainly talk about because schedules do matter, but you can't simply use that as a crutch year in, year out.
Oh, Chris, one of the truths about young talent is most often it is very, very raw talent. So, South Carolina's made a lot of hay in the last 2 off seasons in the transfer portal. Do you see South Carolina staying portal heavy in the future? I mean, obviously, as this talent starts to age in, the 16th ranked class in 2023, now the 2024 class still has a ways to go till they get on campus. They've got a year. But do you see South Carolina in the future playing a very young team, or do you see them trying to get a lot of experience as much as they can through the portal and making that a program policy?
Diesel, I think South Carolina could be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the transfer portal in college football. And we're seeing it, right? There's no slowing down for Shane Beamer, I think, when it comes to the portal. Heck, we just saw it late last week with Jatius Gear, actually the Anderson, South Carolina native, upstate native, who went to Syracuse, is now coming home to play for South Carolina. And Shane Beamer had 3.5 sacks a year ago for the Orange. I think a great fill in a position of need at the edge position. He'll probably start day one for the Gamecocks. But, I think it's a balance for sure, guys. I mean, I don't know exactly Shane Beamer's philosophy, but you want to have a balance. You want to definitely get your own talent in regards to high school recruiting and stuff like that. But I think Shane Beamer has shown, and he's embraced the transfer portal. If they can go out there and get a guy that can help them immediately in a position of need, I mean, they're going to do it. I mean, look right now at Logan Diggs, the Notre Dame transfer running back who they're in on with LSU. If they don't get him, there's another guy from NC State. I'm sure they'll move to him, right? They're able to. And what the portal has allowed, guys, and one of the reasons I say that I think South Carolina could be one of the biggest beneficiaries, is, the tier 1 level guys, they're going to your big name schools, right? Like a lot of them are. But there's a lot of tier 2 guys out there who are really, really good football players, like a DJ Uiagalelei, right? We all know who that is, who's going to go to Oregon State, who has a chance to play for an Oregon State program that's a really good Pac-12 program and put together a really, really nice season. Like that's a great story in regards to where the portal won for a guy. Just to go closer to home, get into a system that more fits him. We all saw the comments he made after he left Clemson and went to Oregon State. But, for those tier 2 guys, I think for whatever reason, they lose their job or something happens. Look at the Spencer Rattler. The Gamecocks can be a beneficiary where it's like you can still come play in the SEC. You can play for an up-and-coming program. You can play for a really fun-to-play-for head coach. And you can be a day 1 starter. Maybe at Alabama, Georgia, one of the other programs, Ohio State. You're having to sit and wait a couple of years. So it's just changed the game. And I think it's brought more parity to college football. And I see a team like South Carolina, a program like the Gamecocks, being one of the biggest beneficiaries from it.
So who is the next domino that's going to drop in terms of South Carolina's recruiting class? Right now, Chris, very impressive. South Carolina 9th, Tennessee 10th, Florida 11th in the recruiting rankings. LSU 5th. That is company Shane Beamer most certainly wants to keep. Who is the next big name we're going to hear drop for the Garnet and Black?
It's hard to predict, Mark, which specific name it'll be, but June will be a very, very big month for the Gamecocks, and one you definitely want to keep an eye on, right? That's when you got visits, you got guys on campus, and so, who knows who is first? But I will tell you this, I would expect to start seeing the welcome homes really roll in as we turn the calendar the next month in the month of June. Shane Beamer's shown his first 2 years on campus. I remember the first year. He was here, and it was just like, I think they got like 12 welcome homes in a span of like 14 days or something crazy like that. It was bonkers, the type of off-season momentum they were generating through recruiting. And I think you're obviously seeing it this year as well, but they're doing the next welcome home. To answer your question though, Mark Ryan, I don't know that it's going to be a high school kid. I think with the transfer portal, this Logan Diggs thing, they like where they stand right now. It's a tough race between the Gamecocks and LSU. And of course, Logan Diggs, a guy that grew up 75 miles from Baton Rouge. That's going to make it a tough get. Obviously, most of the time those guys go home, but he already left home once. So maybe he will pick South Carolina, but it would not surprise me if the next welcome home isn't a transfer portal guy. But, while I can't really tell you, I can't really think who will be the first high school kid they get. I would expect the month of June, man. It's going to be a big month for them. And that's kind of the month they've circled as, this is our action month. Let's get these guys in here. Let's get them committed. Because guys are committing so much earlier now. So I think the month of June is when you can really look out to see, you'll see a lot of their big prospects start to drop.
The Gamecocks have gone from perhaps a national championship favorite on the Diamonds to the third best team in the States the last few weeks. This late season dip, Chris, of Gamecocks baseball, big deal, little deal, or no deal?
I think to say no deal is not fair, but I think to say big deal and throw in the towel and overreact is also the incorrect reaction. So I'll go little deal. It's a deal, right? All the games matter in a short season where you play 56 games. You lose 8 of 9. That's a deal, right? But I think to label it a big deal and the reaction from some that this season's over, throw in the towel, the Gamecocks are no good. And I understand, Mark, it stings more, right? When not only are you struggling, but your rival is thriving. You know that very well as to what's going on right now with preseason hype and expectations with Florida football and Florida State football. You get that. You're living that right now. So, and we're living that too on the Diamond with the Gamecock struggles. Clemson's maybe the hottest team in college baseball. They're projected as a top 8 national seed, which I thought was, listen, tip of the cap, Eric Bakich. I said it last year when they hired him. It was a great hiring. I would have taken Eric Bakich in Columbia in a heartbeat at that time. But I still think I'm not throwing in the towel on the South Carolina team. Listen, every great team has a dip. And when you look at this Arkansas series in a vacuum, and I know that's not how it works, but Mark, nobody was expecting South Carolina to go into Bone Walker and take 2 of 3 from the number 3 ranked Arkansas Razorbacks, a team that had lost 1 SEC game at home all year. They're one of the best teams, if not the best in college baseball. The problem was that weekend was following up, getting swept by Kentucky and losing 2 of 3 to Auburn. So I actually saw things, Mark, and nobody out there would label me a sunshine pumper, right? But I saw things over the past weekend that I liked. I actually feel better about the Gamecocks coming into this week. Now, it's a pivotal week. You've got Charlotte on your field tomorrow night, last midweek game of the season, and then a big 3-game series at home against the Tennessee Volunteers to close out the regular season. So you need to finish out strong. But I think this team, they're starting to get healthy again. Brandon Wimmer returns, Talmadge LeCroy. You need to get Ethan Petrie going in the middle of that lineup, obviously. But I'm not worried about the Yarcocks. I'll say little deal, but not overreacting.
Chris Phillips, the Spurs Up Show, live show on the Daily Crow, Monday through Friday, 12 to 2, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Thanks, bud.
Hey, appreciate you, Mark. Y'all are good with Diesel. Take care.
All right, the top 5 at 5 is next here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. What is good, my party people? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Can I get an amen? Here's how you guys can take part. 844-FAN phone is the number. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Coming up in this hour, we have got onsides and offsides at 5:40. At 5:20, I am going to make predictions for Gamecocks and Clemson athletics for the next 3 years. Okay, I'm going to take a 3-year snapshot. I'm going to make predictions for you. Clemson, Tigers, South Carolina Gamecocks, different sports over the next 3 years. Here is what I see. But for right now, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
Now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5, what is the biggest name that has not yet made the college football playoff to you? And who are the next ones that will? It's interesting. If you want to highlight the problem with the lack of parity that exists in college football, all you have to do is look at the playoff history, the college football playoff history. We've had 9 years of playoffs. 36 total berths in the playoffs in those 9 years. And we've had only a total of 14 different teams that have made the playoff. It gets worse. In 9 years of the playoff, only 7 teams have multiple berths. Okay? Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Washington, Georgia, Notre Dame, LSU, Michigan, Cincinnati, and TCU are the only teams that have made the college football playoff in 9 years of its existence. If you ask me who are the most surprising omissions, the most surprising programs who haven't made it yet, I'd say USC 1, Florida 2, and Penn State 3, just in terms of their program prestige. Not when you really consider the caliber of play, because USC's been up and down, so has Florida, and Penn State seemingly can't get over the hump. Who are going to be the next teams that pop their college football cherry, their college football playoff cherry? Who are going to be the next ones that do that? Well, if I had to name 10 most likely, I would have Penn State, USC, and Florida in there. I'd have Utah, Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, UCLA, Ole Miss, and Miami. You notice who we didn't mention yet? Auburn hasn't made a college football playoff. Texas A&M has not made a college football playoff. BYU has not. Iowa has not. And then when you factor in the fact that when the playoff expands to 14 teams next year, you're going to have the group of 5 is going to be there every year. So what group of 5 team, when we look 20, 30 years from now, is going to have the most college football playoff berths? Is it going to be Memphis, San Diego State, Tulane, Boise State, or the winningest program since the inception of the college football playoffs, the Appalachian State Mountaineers?
Yeah.
This must be Producer Appreciation Day or something, man. This is crazy. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? Only 14 different teams have made the playoffs in 9 years of its existence. Alabama leads the way, 7 berths in 9 years. Clemson has 6 berths in 9 years. Ohio State 5, Oklahoma 4 are your top 4 schools in terms of frequency of getting in. What say you about that? Next up,
4.
At number 4, tomorrow begins the NBA's Conference Finals, Eastern and Western Conference Finals. I have two clear victors here, but it's not who you might think. We know, you know, that the NBA is rooting for Lakers Celtics. They want to return to the glory days of the 1980s. And I do think Boston's going to go to the NBA Finals. Miami embodies all that you can achieve with heart and hustle, right? That's what they are. They don't have the talent to beat Boston. Boston beats Miami in 6. A better team would sweep the Heat, but Boston will beat Miami in 6 games. Likewise, I believe that people have been sleeping on Denver all year. They have been the first place team in the Western Conference since December 20th. It is now May 15th. Yet when we started the playoffs, Phoenix had better odds. Where are they? Oh, they lost to Denver. That's right. Golden State had better odds. Where are they? Oh, yeah, they lost to the Lakers. The Lakers have had the best record in the NBA since the trading deadline. But guess what they don't have? The home field advantage of playing a mile high. And I believe Denver and that mile high advantage is going to be hard on the elder statesman LeBron James. I like Denver in 6 over the Lakers to create a Denver and Boston NBA Finals.
You know, I used to have people argue with me that App State stadiums at 3,300 feet were high enough in elevation that it actually caused visiting teams to struggle with the altitude. It's not that high up. And science shows that altitude doesn't affect athletes until you get up to that 5,000-foot range.
You know, where we are in Greenville is about 1,000 feet up.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know, like, your oxygen absorption is 2% less here? It's like it's. I don't know whether that's statistically significant.
I can tell you, when I went to New Mexico, when we were up at 7,000 feet at Ashley's parents' house, that sucks.
Really?
It's hard. It gets hard to breathe. We were taking a road trip and we drove up to almost 10,000 feet. No. And I being, you know, one of these low altitude, dense oxygen suckers, I needed one of these little cans of compressed oxygen. I felt like an athlete on the sideline that just ran for an 80-yard touchdown. I needed an oxygen mask up there at 10,000 feet. It's high up there. That air gets thin.
I do think that's going to be a big advantage that no one's talking about for the Denver Nuggets. I like them over the Lakers in 6 games. Next up.
3.
Folks, we spent some time today discussing the sad story of Ja Morant, South Carolina's own. Seen over the weekend again on Instagram Live, brandishing a gun, now in his car. We've had a wide-ranging discussion on that today. Like, why does he see the need or feel the need or have the desire to be a gangster? Why is that important to him? Why does he not care about the effect that this is having on those young people who look up to him? And there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids that do. Ja Morant should be less concerned about street cred and looking cool and more concerned about the fact that his team over a large body of work plays better without him. I'm not lying to you. The Memphis Grizzlies, all the games that Ja Morant has missed, they've been a better team, better defensive efficiency, better one-loss record when he doesn't play. And that's not Mark Ryan's opinion. Those are facts.
If ever there was a player that needed to be in a small market, it's Ja Morant.
He is.
Well, I mean, smaller, not in Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis and Ja are not mixing very well.
I mean, like, in football terms, he's a guy that needs to be in Green Bay.
Right. No, you're right. So what does Ja Morant become that athlete that lets it all slip away? Does he enter that what-if list of athletes? And does the NBA bear any responsibility for coddling the superstars, never giving them any tough love, letting them call all the shots? What do you guys say about that? Next up.
2.
James Harden scored 9 points in Game 7 yesterday as Philadelphia lost in Game 7 by 24 points to the Boston Celtics. James Harden not only scored 9 points, but now has shot under 30% 6 times in Game 7s in his career.
He is-
Stephen A. Smith has had it with James Harden's disappearing act.
James Harden was so awful, so bad, he should actually shave his beard so he could hide his identity. That's how bad he was. I mean, it was really, really bad. I say that in all seriousness. I'm not joking. I worked in Philadelphia for 17 years. It was that bad. I'm telling you right now, it would be difficult for him to walk the streets. You don't do what you saw him do on Sunday afternoon in a Game 7.
You think rich James Harden is walking the streets of downtown Philly?
No,
No.
not at all. Not at all. I just want to know that James Harden cares. I want to see him care. You know, he and Karl Anthony Towns, there's a reason he was on our all less is more team. And then what did he do? We did our all less is more team, Diesel, on Friday.
Yeah.
What did he do on Sunday? Crap the bed again.
I think
Game
you-
7, 9 points. Give me a break.
I think you left Anthony Davis off that list.
Well, Anthony Davis is balling now. I mean, he's balling.
He balled once in the Nuggets in the Warriors series.
Yeah.
And then the 2 follow-up games to that, granted, one of them he caught a shot to the dome. But the game that he was completely healthy, I believe it was Game 3, he sucked. He had like 4 points in Game 3 after scoring a massive output in Game 2.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's called street clothes.
We will see. He's been one of the NBA's best defensive players, man. Look, I need players who rise for the moment. You know, I'm just done with James Harden. I'm done with his act. I'm done with his bad shot selection. I think he's past his prime in terms of age. I think his skill set doesn't age as well as Steph Curry's skill set ages. And Philadelphia is stuck with him. 9 points in Game 7 for Philadelphia when Jason Tatum dropped 51 for the Celtics. And finally,
1.
man, let me tell you what. I am wondering if the NFL has bitten off a little bit more than they can chew here, my friends. You see, with the schedule release, the NFL is now giving us Black Friday games. They're now giving us football on Saturdays 4 weeks in a row instead of 2 weeks in a row. Well, what's the problem, Mark Ryan? Are you saying you have an issue with more football? That's just it. You're not getting more football. You're getting football that is more spread out. And if you're like me, you have family obligations, right? Like I grew up in a household where every time I tried to watch football on Thanksgiving, the NBA on Christmas, I would get the little look of the eye, the stink eye from mom or dad saying, Mark, it's family time. It's the holidays. Look, you might watch football during Thanksgiving and be fine. That's cool. But the thing is, the NFL, with this move, is just going to be increasing the divorce rate in America. At what point does it become too much? At what point are they asking too much of you, the fan? A whole day of football on Thanksgiving followed by now Black Friday games, right? 2 days of Saturday football in January. Now there's going to be 4 straight Saturdays of NFL football. At what point have they jumped the shark? At what point have they bitten off more than they can chew, all in the name of greed? And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook at The Fan Upstate. Follow us on Twitter at The Fan Upstate. Subscribe to us on YouTube at The Fan Upstate. Broadcasting live right now, looking in and waving to you on the screen right now. And finally, email. All of you guys can email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next, I will make some 3-year predictions on Clemson and South Carolina athletics. I will do so next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Okay.
So, viewers on the stream, appreciate you being on the stream today. We have to make this a quick goodbye because Mark's got to do a live read thing. But thank you for watching the show today. Hit that subscribe button, and we will be back here tomorrow for another live stream.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much.
Coming back in 10 seconds.